All right. Welcome to Birthing the Gifts. I am clinical psychologist Dr. Khiela Holmes. Here at Birthing the Gifts, we provide a safe and compassionate space for people to birth their God-given gifts. In this interview series, we discuss the process of giving birth to your gifts.
Mhm.
Today, we have with us Dr. Keisha White. Hello, hello.
Hello,
Executive
hello.
Director, founder of the Prep Factory,
Yes,
higher education consultants. I see that in the background, higher
yes,
education
yes, yes.
consultants. So the Prep Factory, to just maybe start a little bit with talking about the Prep Factory, but of course, with this conversation series, we talk about people's process. So we'll get into
Yes,
that as well.
yes,
But Keisha, if I can call you Keisha, Keisha, we
yes.
know you Dr. White. We know you Dr. White.
Keisha's
But
perfect.
if you could, what was that?
I said Keisha's perfect.
Keisha's perfect. All right. All right. But if you could tell us some about the mission and the vision of Prep Factory, what do you all do?
Okay, so we just this year, 2023, we launched our new mission statement. So I'll paraphrase it. What we do is we focus on teaching students how to thrive in higher education. We do that with using scholarship money. We help to reduce or mitigate the obstacles that a young person faces, particularly students who are deemed historically marginalized. So we help with some finding scholarships. We teach them that writing component because writing is a very large part of higher ed. We teach them how to navigate the financial aid process, the enrollment management, the housing, and all of that. And we really work with a student from the admission. Our tagline is college planning from admissions to graduation. So
Mhm.
I think we're really excited. So when students, because anybody can help a student get into college is one thing, but to help them graduate from college and launch into the career, into the workforce,
Yes.
that's where we really focus our efforts. That retention piece.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. It sounds like it's so much involved in that.
It
From
is.
applying to graduate, you already know. Until you're like, I already know how much is involved in that. So you want them to be, you want to prepare them, equip them to be able to thrive in higher education. What is your, like, if you had to say your why behind it, what made you know this is something that's needed? The Prep Factory is needed because.
Well, it's needed because there are so many students who get overlooked, right? I was a student that got overlooked. And I went to high college I went to college in the 90s, early 90s, with the exception of a random stranger coming to my house and telling me about Texas Southern University, which is my alma mater. Random, he sold insurance. Never encountered him again. And then piquing my curiosity to go to the counselor's office. And there was one application in the counselor's office for Texas Southern, which is an HBCU, right? And I attended a predominantly white high school. So
Okay.
there was certain students were getting helped. And
Mhm.
certain students, even though they were good kids, great kids, academically astute, were getting overlooked. And I was one of those young people. I wasn't at risk. I wasn't at the top valedictorian, but I was invisible.
Um,
Right. And so I want to increase the visibility. We want to,
mhm.
at the Prep Factory, we want to increase the visibility of those students.
You want to increase the visibility of students that are invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, as we know, when we talk about processes of birthing the gifts, I truly believe, and at Birthing the Gifts, believe that we all have gifts and abilities and talents. And it seems like at the Prep Factory, you all realize that as well and kind of understand that students can be overlooked and invisible, and they have extraordinary talents that need to be nurtured.
Absolutely. That is, unfortunately, it's a cautionary tale all too often, right?
Mm,
What is it? I think
mhm.
Dr. Miles Monroe said, the best ideas are in the cemetery.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were the ideas that, just imagine all those people who didn't have someone
Mhm.
speaking life into them. So
Yes.
what we do is we really speak to the purpose of
Um,
a young person. We don't say, "Oh, well, what school do you go to?" That's the common question. That's the societal question. Oh, where you want to go
mhm.
to college? Who's on your list? What's your top 10? Well, our program is very research based. Our curriculum is is evidenced on that. And we start with the student. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what is your, because we're really big on institutional fit, because that's where you're going to thrive, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
find a college that is for you, just like your favorite pair of shoes, when it's
Mm-hmm.
cold, rainy, because you already know how it is, what's going to make you get out of your dorm room, out of your bed to go across class in the snow, in the
Yes.
heat? You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you are where you need to be, want to be, and are growing and thriving in that environment, the other stuff is a non-factor. You know,
Wow. Love it.
it increases your ambition. You know, it shifts. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and then what it does is change the trajectory of your life and your family's life.
Absolutely. I can definitely see that just as being a mental health provider, somebody that works with youth, I could when I talk to and interact with college students, that is a huge factor is that institutional fit. And I'd imagine when you talk about retention, them being able to graduate, stay there long enough to graduate, that fit is important.
That fit is very
Let's
important.
rewind just a bit, Keisha, if we could, because again, we want to focus on the process, and then we can maybe fast forward back to the prep
Right.
factory. So, in your life, so we're talking about higher education, education. When was it in your life when you knew education is going to be a part of my journey? That education, maybe, even though these may not have been the exact words, but that education is a part of my gift package or something I need to do.
Well, I was an adult by that time, but I recognized what God did by watching. I was 10 years old, and I shared this with my students. Um, at 10 years old, I saw an after school movie where a child got hurt, and I saw an
Mm,
adult helping that child navigate through that pain and become an advocate for the child.
mm,
So I thought,
mm.
oh, that's what I want to do, child advocacy. I didn't know the word was child advocacy. I knew in my 10-year-old brain, I wanted to do something to help kids, right?
Okay.
And
Wow.
so I thought, but that in that movie, that person was a lawyer,
Okay.
right? So I thought everything was going to be about that. So I crafted a plan. I mean, baby, let me tell you something. This plan was foolproof. You hear me? I crafted a plan, which is why, and I thought everything was lining up and going that direction, which is like, so it was, I thought it was fate. By the time my senior year got there, there's this guy talking about Texas Southern, and then there's the one application in the counselor's office, right? I'm like,
Mm,
okay, this is a done deal. Then I ran for, and I was an advocate in high school. I singularly protested apartheid. Now, mind you, I'm in a predominantly white space, vocal enough to protest something like that. But academically invisible, right?
mm, mhm.
Socially conscious, socially people knew who I was, but my academics were not lauded. And I graduated with
Oh,
honors.
uh,
So, right, but it fast forward, I'm an adult, I'm married, and then right at the really at the cusp of a divorce, I realized, and I'm enjoying this paralegal career. I didn't quite get to law school. It wasn't for lack of trying. It just I had this extreme disinterest suddenly.
mm,
You know what? This isn't. I can't see myself doing this anymore.
mm,
And even though I had the credentials to get in, I just lost the zeal for it. But I did not lose the zeal for the advocacy piece. Right?
That's interesting. If we could pause there, because sometimes in people's process, I wonder if Keisha, if that's what happens when they're trying to understand what their next step should be, what their process looks like. If at some point they have a zeal over here, but then they have did you find that that disinterest was persistent, like it just kept being there?
And,
Okay.
and and I tried, right? And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this isn't, to use a colloquialism, fish ain't biting.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, when do you pull in the net? Fish ain't biting.
Mm-hmm.
When do I get out of the water? When I put the boat up? And
Mm-hmm.
and that was, I really wrestled with that because a big part of my identity was, you're going to be a lawyer. I mean, you're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a judge. You're going to fight for kids. And I had to, it almost was like an identity crisis. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
ever going to get to that. And then when Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, I was in Houston, and that was like when the U.S. shifted, I shifted with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
I had all of this stuff in the air. The divorce, being a young mother, being a new mother, a career shift. Then, but what I did in that moment was I told my boss, hey, look, I got to go do something. People are suffering and I can't watch it. I can't sit
Okay.
here in this high rise office and watch people suffer.
Mm-hmm.
That advocate in me was screaming to come out. And I
Mm-hmm.
just allowed wealth and privilege to quash her, right?
Oh, wow.
I got comfortable in the suburbs.
Mm.
I got comfortable being a wife and a mom. And then I just was like, okay, I just got
Wow.
comfortable, but she wasn't really gone, you know.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
and I guess of some sort, I don't want to say it's an identity crisis because it really was an identity awareness or an awakening.
Mm.
There was
Okay,
nothing
talk about that
crisis.
part. Yeah.
It
It's,
was
yeah.
nothing crisis about it. And then that's where
Mm-hmm.
the Holy Spirit said, you need to get to know me. Because
Mm.
I was seeking something. And I prayed about that this morning. I said, God, let's thank you for telling me that.
Mm.
March 2000, around this time,
Mm.
2006, the Holy Spirit told me, you need to get to know me. You
You
need
need to get to what was it?
you need to get to know me.
Oh, get to know. Okay, that's right. It's
You
the
need
Holy
to get to
Spirit.
know
Yeah.
me. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was my old self saying, don't forget who you were. I was so removed from even my religious background. I don't want to say religious, but my background, because
Mm-hmm.
I was in the burbs and I was trendy. And it was like, I wore my blazers and my designer handbag, and I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Okay.
thought, man, but I kept going to church. I was a trendy Christian.
Mm.
And I presented well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I thought,
Mm.
but I was empty. And so in all of
Wow.
that, was seeing that, and then I got around a group of women who were walking in purpose. And then
Wow.
I started going to Bible study and all this stuff. And then things like clicked,
Mm.
clicked into place
Wow.
for me. And I was like, okay, you don't want to go to law school. Give yourself to permission to say it out loud.
Wow.
And I said,
Okay.
I
I love
don't
it.
want to go to law. And I had just taken the LSAT,
Wow. So the LSAT, the test you have to take to gain entrance into law school. You had taken that test.
my
Uh-huh.
fifth time taking it.
Mm-hmm.
Every time my score was 139 and it would inch up 140. The first time I got the score, I dreamt it. God gave it to me in a vision. I knew what I was going to get.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I took it, I got the score I needed to get into law school.
Wow.
But I was my mind was already made up.
Wow.
I
Wow.
got the
That's it.
see,
That's the process. Keisha, you highlighted so many things. I think we need to unpack that. Let me just unpack that because it's several different parts there, different just pivotal points where decisions were made. And then it went in different directions. So even if we rewind back to when you were 10 and you knew that that's where that it's almost you discovered, if I can use that language, you discovered that there is an advocate within me.
mhm.
And at that time, it was like if you felt that it was going in the legal direction. Now, you said something interesting. You said you crafted a plan. So, if I could just unpack that part a little bit, what was that you? Because when I think about that with youth, given that I work with children and youth, and you do as well, what is that you think that was in you that that encouraged you, inspired you to craft a plan at that
My
age?
mom,
Because our kids don't do that. Your mom, okay,
my mom, my mom is a
okay,
planner,
okay.
and she's problem solution oriented, right?
Mm,
And
mhm.
this is how we get to the solution. Well, what's the
Okay.
problem? Let's go. But she's a mathematician, so that makes sense, right? She's very
Mhm,
linear, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
so everything's about strategy. There's a
mhm,
way to get there. We just have to
mhm.
discover what that way is, identify what it is, where you want to go, and what's the best way to get there, right? And so I just watched her problem solve,
Mhm,
and I learned how to problem solve, from learning how to trim hedges,
mhm,
to because there was no YouTube University, you had to learn, you had to really calculate things and figure things out. So I learned how to plan from my mother. And actually, what's funny is that the entire prep factory premise of strategy to get the students to college is the one that my mom used for me.
Wow. Okay.
I probably
Look at
should tell
you.
her that one day. I was like, oh, this is the single black mother plan.
Oh, wow.
How do I get
Wow.
my child more?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I love it.
and
I love it.
what does that more look like? Well, my child wants to go to school to do this, and what does that look like? So we crafted this plan. Okay, you want to be an attorney? Well, all right, you're gonna have to go to college. Do you want to go to a black
Mm-hmm.
college or a white college? Well, you know what, Mama, you went to a black college. I kind of want to keep that going.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't want to go where my brother's going.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to leave Texas. So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize what she was doing is a questionnaire of some sort. And so,
Wow.
all right, well, then we have three options. You can look at UAPB, which is her alma mater, Prairie
Mm-hmm.
View A&M, and then Texas Southern. She knew
Mm-hmm.
she wanted me to go to a school that had university in it because she knew that
Mm-hmm.
was an attachment to grad program,
Okay.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then there was that piece. Oh, there it is. And then we became aware of Texas Southern about it with the insurance agent. Then the plan was going to the counselor's office in the morning, see if they
Mm-hmm.
have da, 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 because there was no one helping us. We had to help ourselves. She had
Oh,
to help me. And because she learned what not to do from my brother, who's a year older than me, who
mm-hmm.
first year only got $98 in Pell Grant,
Wow.
and she had to pay for him, right? Then it
Mm-hmm.
was, I know I've had the pitfalls already, so I know what to do for this next one,
Right. Right.
right?
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a note
trial
to
and error,
parents, though. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's what it was. And so the plan was that. And so for me, it was because she's like, you need to probably get you an internship. Well, what's that? She started teaching me the vocabulary,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
I had to learn the vocabulary. She taught me about work study. So
Mm-hmm.
by day one, Kyla, I had a work study job before she drove off that campus, and she wasn't even there 8 hours. I
Mm-hmm.
had a work study job. I had groceries in my refrigerator, and I had a plan. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think we wrote it down, but it was in me, right?
Mm.
Etched in my brain. Get my undergraduate degree in political science. I just didn't know if it was going to be history or political science, and then a minor in English.
Mm-hmm.
I have my political science degree and I have my English hours because I minored in English. I started as a freshman studying in the law school.
Okay.
It was behind my dorm. Part of
Mm-hmm.
the plan. Oh, the law school is right here by your dorm. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
boom, boom. I'm immersing myself in the culture of where I want to
Mm-hmm.
go, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
acculturating
Mm-hmm.
on this as an 18-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
Uh, she gave me some other advice, some advice about boys,
Mm-hmm.
that you gotta be left with.
That's
But
part of it. Yeah.
it was rudimentary, but it was very sound advice that I told my son when I took him off to school. Hey, look,
Mm-hmm.
it's still true. Do this,
Mm-hmm.
about girls and stuff. So that plan worked. I got my degree. I did the internship. I was preparing for law school. We did not take into the consideration that God didn't want me to go to law school.
And that's the next part of the process. That's the next part of the process. So what I think that first part though is it's a powerful testament to an intentional, resourceful, on top of it mama is what up it's just that is just a note to parents to kind of say when you hear your child say a thing about I'm interested in it and I want to do that, it's like she got on that, and that not only got you on a path but that almost like embedded a process within you. This is how you do things. To me, that's so critical in helping children birth their gifts, is for the adults in their life to really be intentional and notice that in the way
Mm-hmm.
that it sounds like your mom definitely did. I just had to highlight that because even if it does, and I know we're getting to that section, even if it does go in a different direction, it's still in you,
Mm-hmm.
right? That process, that determination, that persistence is like in you.
And
Okay.
and I'll tell you why English was chosen as a minor as opposed to anything else is because she recognized that I had a talent for writing.
Ah, okay.
you know, I'm a poet. And she said, well, you might, you know, to have a little fun, you might want to, you want to minor in English.
Mm,
I'm like, English, but I loved English. But she saw that I loved English all through school. I
yeah.
mean, I thrived in that subject. She's like, that's clearly one of your academic strengths, you
Mm,
know, and, you know, a minor. And I was like, well, what's a minor? It's like, well, you know, in da da da, there was more vocabulary, right?
yeah. Wow.
So
That's
I
great.
minored in English. She said, and that'll make you a stronger writer for law school.
Mm,
But she's
wow. So
coming
she
from
had
a
to see that though.
logical,
Yes.
you know, she's using the logic of, she's using her God-given talent, which is
Yes.
she's given an innate ability to problem solve mathematically. That
Mm,
translated is a transferable skill.
hmm.
And, you know,
I love that. I
yeah.
love that connection that you just made, that she used her own God-given gifts that were in there. That played a role in her parenting and then positioned you to then discover and nurture your God-given gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow, that's so powerful. So then it got to the point where you said, well, one of the things that wasn't noticed or taken into consideration is God did not have a plan for you to go to law school. Still, that advocate was in you. Now, is that when you start? Do you think that's where that disinterest came from? That emptiness? Is that what
It was, I was 36, 34, 34 years old, 36. And that's funny is that I started transitioning things, right? I like every year on my birthday, which is Valentine's Day, I do this reflection. Am I where I want to go? Da da da. Well, that year I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to braces, and that and watching my teeth shifted
mm,
something in me,
mm,
you know, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have to, I don't have to settle, you know, I can, I can pivot,
mm,
right? So it was like, and then even when people say, man, your teeth are really moving, and I'm saying, what's going on with me, you know? And then, like I said, that was the beginning of the end of my marriage at the same time. And then also, but the beginning of me of motherhood, you know?
wow.
And I'm
So that
like,
was shifting in
whoa.
several areas, shifting and pivoting in several areas.
Yeah, so
Mm,
I guess it wasn't even 2006. It was, well, kind of 2005, 2004,
mm,
2005, because my son was a year or two. But it
mm,
just 2006 is when the culmination of everything, you
mm,
know. So who I was October 2006 was totally bipolarized or polarized from who I was January 1st, 2006.
mm.
I didn't even
Mm.
look the same, right?
Wow.
Because by then my face structure has changed because of the braces. And then uh, you know, the ending of the marriage was like I could breathe.
Mm,
It was like discovering me without this other personality.
mm,
Am I
mm-hmm,
who am I in who am I not in plurality or
mm,
attached to someone else?
mm-hmm.
I always wanted to go back to school.
Okay.
And that was one of the things I thought I can go back to school. And remember telling my ex-husband at the time, when you walked out, you left the gate open.
Mm,
You went to the left and we went to the right,
mm.
you
Okay.
know? And when we went to the right, we changed cities and I knew I didn't want to be in the legal field anymore. And it was a very lucrative career. I was a rising star very young in my early 30s.
Wow.
I was on my,
Okay.
I mean, on paper, very financially solvent,
Mm,
very deficient,
mm, okay.
you know,
Okay.
and it wasn't
So
an
you
ant.
had to go inward. That's what I'm hearing you say. On the outside, trendy, doing the
Baby,
thing,
presented
uh,
well,
okay. But then you went inward and realized
destitute.
deficient, empty. We need to do something here.
I was I was wealthy but poverty stricken at the
Mm,
same time.
okay.
And that emptiness, so when Hurricane Katrina hit and I went and I told them, I called a group of friends, hey, look, I'm about to go to the Astrodome. What you gonna do? I don't know, but I know God's going to tell me when I get there. Because by this time, I'm building a relationship.
Okay.
I said, God's going to tell me when I get there. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Well, we want to go with you. All right, where y'all at? It was a very like, come on, girl, let's get in the car. And from there, we went to the dollar store. And it was, without realizing it, I'm buying sidewalk chalk, jump rope, jacks. We still had jacks. You know, I'm buying things for kids. And the lady asked us, what are you doing? What y'all doing? I said, we're going to go to the Astrodome to help the victims of Hurricane Katrina, the displaced families. She said, I knew I was supposed to come in here. I meant to sow a seed. She gave me $20. She said, I had no reason to be in this store. And she said, God led me here to meet y'all.
Wow.
And she gave me $20. Because we didn't have any money. But my boss, who was like, just like, I think he gave me $20. You know, and then my ex-husband was talking to the neighbor because I said, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. He's talking to the neighbors. He's like, oh, such and such said they found out what you were doing and they want to sow a seed into what you're doing.
Wow.
So donations start coming in and I don't even understand what God is doing. Right.
Wow. Yeah. It sounded like you were hearing him, building relationship, being obedient.
Being obedient. I just knew I had to go to the Astrodome. When we got there, we had no clue. Group of women, you know, various walks of life. And what we ended up doing was setting up a child learning center. And with all the tools to allay the disruption of their lives. We gave them the sidewalk chalk was used as art therapy. All we had to do was make it available and the children used it.
Wow.
And they drew the impact of the disruption. And it was heartbreaking. It was I don't want to say heartbreaking, it was heart-wrenching. Sketching out this, we had construction paper and markers and all these things. And then what parents used it for was, it became a very makeshift center where they could drop their kids off, sign them in, and we watched them right there in the Astrodome while they can go and stand in a FEMA line and get IDs and their services and all this other, and they would come back. And then, you know, because they're like, and that's how God chose to you.
Wow.
And then you know what that was, right?
Well, it sounds like exactly. That's what I'm thinking. As you were talking, I'm like, look at that advocacy, that advocate in you just being nurtured and coming out.
Emerged out of nowhere. It's like when Superman burst out of the phone booth. That child advocate, just like dun, 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 you know,
right?
And she came right out, and we did that for 1 week. We did that for 1 week, and I learned compassion and the importance of making people feel dignified, you know, and I learned that things weren't always what they seemed, right? I learned so much from that experience. I ended up getting featured in USA Today because of that.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah. I got featured in USA Today. And I was just like, look, I just came to do what God told me to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what to say.
Look at that. So it's like a blessing for them and stirring up something in you.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I really got more blessed.
Wow.
You know, what they needed was time and space.
Right.
What I needed was purpose. You know what I'm saying? That's good.
Yes. Yeah. That is. I know, right? Just like, come on now.
Come on.
Yeah. So I want to say, talk about it. So tell us what happened after that, because you learned from it. Purpose was being stirred up. Where did it go from there?
So to go back to that cushy corporate America job was just not enough. And let me tell you, when God's ready for you to move, he will set it up so you move.
Oh,
and
yeah.
my boss, who was he was a behemoth type of titan, dictator type of attorney. He lorded over me because I felt empowered in making decisions. And he wanted to not he didn't appreciate that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, and I remember he had a legal file, which can get pretty thick, and he cornered me in a cubicle and yelled, stood over me, spit coming out his mouth, angry, red, and and yeah. And I was shaking.
Mm,
And what the Holy Spirit said was, this is abuse, and this is not what I have for you,
mm,
you know?
okay.
And I said, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And that moment I put
Yes.
myself together and everybody was watching.
Oh, wow.
Mind you, I
Okay.
was
So
the
this was
only
in front of others. That's
and
horrible.
only this it was only two black paralegals in the entire company.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was in Alabama, and I was the
Mm-hmm.
only one in Texas. And this is out the entire company nationwide. We were the only two black paralegals, right? But we were the senior most paralegals. But
Mm-hmm.
I was in fiduciary, so I was the only one in fiduciary estate planning. I was really good at what I did, really, really good, and I knew how to communicate with people that got things done, and I knew strategy, right? All those skills
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and problem solving. But
Right.
you know, if we look at Esther, as she rose, her enemy also rose.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and that's
Oh
what it
my
felt
goodness.
like. You know,
Mm-hmm.
as she was
Mm-hmm.
discovering her purpose, her enemy's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Haman was rising at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like when I look back at it now,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah,
makes that's a lot that makes a lot of sense. So
it
I was like,
does.
I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm
Yeah.
done.
So
I
that's how
made
you dealt with you realize that that was it. Because sometimes I wonder if that happens in people's process, that they start to elevate, and whether that ends up being the industry or the field that you're in, because you were rising in a field that you ultimately shifted from. You shifted away from that area in that industry, and you were still rising in it. So how do you feel like, I know you concluded that I'm done, and how did you, anything else that helped you to kind of handle what seemed like other people being threatened by you being elevated? How did you handle that when you started to notice that that was happening?
I accepted it.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is over. This is done. The
Okay.
marriage was done. The job was done. And what I see now, looking back now, I realized God was giving me space. He was freeing me
Mm,
up.
okay.
The gate was literally left open.
Mm,
So there's nothing keeping you in this area.
okay.
And then being married and then becoming unmarried, you realize the covering. You miss the covering. And I made the decision to move to my home state, which is Arkansas.
Okay.
And I got under my grandfather's covering.
Mm,
And
okay.
you know, and there I thought, okay, now I go back to the political life that I thought I was going to have. Worked in state government. This isn't it. Got a job
Okay.
at Philander Smith College and everything. It's like life got breathed into me.
Wow. Life. If I could just pause, because I know we're going to go into that life just came into you. If you could for a second, because for folks who listening, they may not have a full understanding, at least for you, and how you experienced covering. So do you mind just saying a little bit about that, and why that was important to you at that time, what that looked like for you?
I realized how vulnerable I was, right? So when we're married, our husbands are our priest providers and protectors. So a priest he goes to God on behalf of the family, you know. Provider, that's obvious, and then protector. That's the
Mm-hmm.
protection. I felt very much unprotected. Um,
Okay.
one of the reasons why I left, I'm transparent about it now. But even a couple of years ago, I couldn't have talked about this for anything. I was sexually assaulted
Mm,
after my marriage ended by a guy who took me on a date.
mm,
And I was like, this isn't it.
mm,
This
mm,
isn't it. I don't know what's what, and I'm scared to be
mm.
here. And I don't believe that was God's doing. I
Okay.
know that was the enemy trying to destroy what was being
Absolutely.
birthed in me.
Yeah.
I know that. I
Mhm.
knew that I was done with the area.
Mhm. Okay.
It was like, get out, my life depends
Yes.
on
Mm,
it.
my
So
goodness.
yeah, and that was like I said, I didn't share that, but therapy helped me, going to therapy, doing that work, and it took me a long time to
Mhm.
go, helped uncover
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And I was like, huh, that explains so much.
Okay.
And it, you know, going through that process. So understanding that that's why I retreated. That's why I had to
Okay.
leave. And
Okay.
but it's like also God saying, I got a better life for you. And it's
Mm,
time hey, I got something for you. Just come back. I got you.
yes. Mhm.
And working at Philander Smith and
Mhm.
every lesson that I'd experienced, everything I experienced in undergrad, the positive and the negative, I understood why when I started working with those college students. I
Okay.
literally had a story. Well, no, I take that back. I had a testimony for every one of their situations.
Wow. Wow.
And
That's something. Go ahead.
and
Yeah.
I shared that. I became transparent with it.
Okay.
And I
Mm,
remember one of the young ladies saying, Miss Keisha, it's so easy to talk to you because you don't walk around here acting like you were born saved. You
mm,
show what she was saying was, I showed her me in all, the vulnerability. Like, hey, I didn't have it all figured out, and da 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 da.
mhm,
I was just, I'm like, hey, look, your girl, the girl was out
mhm,
there, or oh, I skipped class, or I skipped the fun. I talked about it all within reason,
mhm,
but
mhm.
it made me a better advocate. But I
Yeah.
didn't realize
Oh,
that's
that's
what
good.
God was doing, right?
Mhm.
I still was kind of
Mhm.
like, oh, I like this job. I never took days off.
Wow.
I was like, I never go to work. I never go to work.
Wow.
And that's what they used to tell us. Oh, you get a job where you don't feel like you go to work. And then you figure out how to make
Mhm.
money doing what you
Mhm.
love. So I love this.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And
That's
those young
beautiful.
people voted me student advocate of the year.
Advocate. There's that again. Wow. I love it, man. That advocacy coming back up.
Coming
Just so
back.
much is connecting there because it's like that advocacy for students, for youth, because they're still youth, essentially teenagers, young adults, emerging adults at that age. And I heard you say something else, transparency. So it seems like you being able to be transparent allowed them to connect with you and feel like they were being advocated for.
Yeah, it
Like
was a relatability.
relatability. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't put on airs, and
Hmm.
the not throwing stones, but the boomer generation is really great at sweeping things under the rug or
Hmm.
pushing them in the closet. And then here you
Hmm.
got Gen Xers, and we're like, hey, work life
Right.
balance, baby. We wide open with it. Like, let me,
Right.
we don't tell everything, but I think we're the
Hmm.
Gen Xers are really good balance of everything's on a need to know basis. I reveal
Hmm.
on a need to know basis. Some things you don't need to know,
Hmm.
and then other things you do. So
Right.
and as things were on a need to know basis,
Hmm.
you know, I was like, there's that part. And so, matter
Right.
of fact, the rest of what that young lady said was, I can't talk to my mama because she act like she was born saved.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, but her mom was an older woman too.
Hmm.
I said, well, there's no indictment against your mama. She did the best she can. I'm like, I got
Hmm.
it. But I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak to your mama. I just know I'm here, and
Right.
shame on me if I don't tell you the truth.
Exactly.
Tell you how it
Exactly.
is. You need to know. I grew up with
Hmm.
boys only want one thing, but not
Hmm.
all boys want one thing.
Right. Hmm.
Some boys want your heart. That one thing is your heart, or
Hmm.
or they want to see you win and da 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 da.
Hmm.
But I just, but everything was
Right.
terrible, managed tell boys. Everything was
Hmm.
anti connection,
Hmm.
anti relationship. Everything was
Right.
running away from.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that probably hurt my marriage too. Like, we didn't know
Right.
how to connect.
Hmm. So as you're talking, it's like it sounds like there were multiple parts of your life that your advocacy part was being nurtured. The part just you personally was being nurtured and you grew to like so many different ways in which you were being equipped for that job that you had at Philander Smith. That's just amazing.
Yes.
At what point did that turn into um, Prep Factory? There you go, the Prep Factory. When did that happen?
At Philander, I got promoted within a year
Mm-hmm.
from being a recruiter to a retention strategist. So
Okay.
my role became how do we keep them here and graduated? And my
Mm-hmm.
population was academically fragile from a 0.0 GPA to a 1.9. And I said, Lord, how is this going to work?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I ended up becoming a student advocate, right?
Okay.
Um, and then they also noticed that while I was a recruiter, the young people would just flock around my desk, not to kind of like kiki it up, but I'm talking to them. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why you at it? Staple these for me. Was this you gonna be in my space? You know what I mean? So I
Right.
was just
Uh-huh.
good at getting young people to getting them buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that until a boss told me that you're really good at rallying them and
That's
getting them to do
great.
what you need them to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
But coming to retention strategist was like, oh, this is, and I created a program called the Undercover Genius Society.
Okay. The Undercover Genius Society. I love it. Okay.
And I said, we have to put a spin on this because these young people are in peril. They're about to get
Mm-hmm.
kicked out of college, and this is their last chance. And for about a week, 2 weeks, the Holy Spirit was waking me up every morning at 2 in the morning, writing out this program. I would just sit at the laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in my master's program, studying public administration, trying to get back into government. I'm still
Okay.
thinking I gotta do this child advocacy thing through federal government, through the traditional
Wow.
channels.
Interesting.
I don't even
Interesting.
see
Like
what God
literally
is
right there.
doing. I'm
Oh, I
so
love
like,
it.
I gotta go back to the original plan, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And then, matter of fact, I moved to Little Rock to enroll in the Bowen School of Law because I had the application submitted, and I had a buddy
Mm-hmm.
who was like, "So you trying to do this thing or what?" And I was like, by the time I moved to Little Rock, I was like, "Nah, it's no longer
Mm-hmm.
there. That zeal, that's not it. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not that." So I wrote
Mm-hmm.
the Undercover Genius Society program, and and I said, "It's gonna work. It's gonna work." And the logo was a flame.
Okay.
I said, it's going to work. It's a torch. It's going to work. It's going to work. I
Mm-hmm.
was convinced it was going to work. And I got the students to buy into it. And
Mm-hmm.
then a buddy of mine was working on his EDD from Vanderbilt was like, yo, you're doing something groundbreaking. Track your data.
Okay.
Track your data. And I'm like, track my data. But
Mm-hmm.
I was learning about data tracking in the MPA program.
Okay. Ah,
As a
okay.
researcher as well, you know what the importance of tracking the data. I had to prove the
Absolutely.
efficacy of the program, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order for it to become institutional.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that. And then at the end of that year, I mean, students moved from a 0.0 to a 3.6 GPA. Students were graduating, students who were a lost cause. They
Oh
were,
my
you know,
gosh.
great kids, academically fragile. They had the
Mm-hmm.
social, what do they need? They needed social capital. They needed to be taught how to navigate undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
They needed structure. They needed discipline. They needed to learn how to focus. They needed time management. And I'm like,
Yeah.
these are soft skills. That's corporate skills. It's corporate
Mm-hmm.
America right here, baby. Let me
There
tell
you
you.
go.
I didn't use
Uh-huh.
my corporate America skills. Okay,
There
you
you
need
go.
timeline. Where's your inventory? Where's this? Where's that?
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn how to write a business email.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, really what it boiled down to is one word. What I was giving them. God used me to give them hope.
Mm.
That's it.
Give
It
them
boiled down to
hope.
one word to give them hope
Uh,
because they couldn't see it for themselves.
Mm.
And now
Okay.
these young people are dynamic. Some of them have gone on to get they're sheriffs and they've gone on to own businesses, they're family,
Wow.
they're husbands and wives. I talked to one of
Mm-hmm.
them yesterday who was a manager of a department, a major department chain, you know,
Wow.
like this is how you do
That's
this. He put
beautiful.
me up on game to help the current prep factory students. I had them come back and
Wow.
be speakers to the prep factory students, and they were like, See, y'all don't
That's
know this,
amazing.
and I was like, I call them my first generation students,
Hmm.
you know,
Wow.
and like they still,
That's amazing. That's
it is,
amazing. It's great. It's great. I just need to say, like, it's the power of instilling hope. I just think that's so great when it comes to people birthing their gifts. That's what I'm hearing you say is that you saw the power of instilling hope. Certainly, of course, teaching them skills, making sure they understood these skills, but really what was happening at the root of all that is their hope was being stirred. And then they were able to really more confidently, it sounded like in a more hopeful way, walk into the gifts that were already in them. It
yeah.
was already there.
And then a lot of their hope had been snatched because of trauma.
Mm,
And I really brought in, the campus psychotherapist was like, Miss White, you keep me so busy.
wow.
He was like, your office is the only one that uses me to this. I said, well, this is above my area of expertise, and I don't believe in dabbling in where my gifts are not. I
Okay.
know that, when you start messing with people's head mentality, you gotta have some training.
Mm-hmm.
Giving you a hug is one thing, and praying for you is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing that, okay, you need more than that.
Right.
You need a professional, a
Mm-hmm.
licensed professional who
Mm-hmm.
can help you to give you some tools in your toolbox.
Wow. And you
And
recognized that and was able to refer them accordingly. Yeah.
I said, I remember telling him, his name was Dr. Jackson. I never get, he's like, oh, I'm not Dr. Jackson, I'm on my way. Like, sir, we speaking into existence. We moving forward. Dr. Jackson, you only got one class left. Please move on.
Right.
And I'm gonna keep you
Okay.
so busy that you're gonna be like, this school need me. But
Mm,
it was, and those young people went.
mm,
They went, and
mm-hmm.
they were healed
Wow.
here. They were healed here and here.
Mm-hmm.
And man, to see them walk across the stage, and then for the
Wow.
parents to see you, Miss Keisha, you the one I keep hearing about. You
Wow.
helped my baby, hugging me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, we knew I wasn't gonna let him go, just like all of that.
I
But
love it. Uh-huh.
that, and I was like, and then, to do it again another year, but then here comes the enemy.
Mm,
And oh man, there it was. But, and that enemy almost shook me to the point where I almost like, I'm out. I ain't a
mm,
believer for Lander, but what the enemy told me was, you have no value here,
mm,
and your education is useless,
mm,
and no one is, basically no one needs me. And that shook me because I'm already dealing with my own stuff from a broken marriage, the stuff I brought with me.
mm,
And
mm,
but when we but as God does, when we walked, after he gave me this yang 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 speech about how low I was, we
mm.
stepped out into the office, and there was a line of 30 to 40 students waiting to see me.
Wow.
And I said, I have no value, huh?
Okay. Wow. Right there in
No
front of you. You'd be
value.
like,
And
like,
he had to kind of do a walk of shame by
mm,
all those kids.
mm-hmm.
And who was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you ready? And
Exactly.
he
Like
took up
they
my
ready
time.
in line. Wow. And that's
And
what it
I
means when they
thought,
say the devil is a lie. He's
the
an
devil
accuser
is
and tries to just do all of these things to tear us down.
tears
But
down.
God, but God.
But God. And so, and then I thought, it's not enough. What I realized, I said, okay, Lord, it's not enough that I'm in the room. Because that used to be my prayer. God, get me in the room.
Mhm.
I said, it's not enough that I'm in the room, God. I need to be at the table,
Yeah.
because there was an opportunity where I was at the table. So my prayer changed every time. I was at the
Mm-hmm.
table, but I had no speak. They wouldn't let me speak. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
but no one knew all the questions they had, and I would jump in, they would ignore me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, they have no, because they don't have their finger on the pulse of the student. They're in these higher offices making these decisions, but they're not interacting. There's no student engagement. So they
Mm-hmm.
can't really speak for what's best for the student. And I was frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, it's not enough that I'm in the room. It's not even enough that I'm at the table. I said, Lord, I need a microphone.
Ah, okay.
I need a microphone.
Okay. Okay.
And he sent me to start my doctoral program.
Ah, okay.
And the
In the
week,
doctoral program in, what did you,
I ended up ultimately getting education leadership.
educational leadership. Okay.
I thought it was going to be in public administration. I thought I was
Ah,
going to add another government degree.
mm,
Mm-mm.
no.
He quickly told me, no, that's not what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Education leadership. And I understood, right?
Mhm.
And then I said, oh my goodness. And I said, okay, Lord, well, why is it that these young people are on this level and they have no way, they don't know how to write and they don't know how to do all this stuff? So he took me down to being an elementary school special education teacher. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what I thought about? To the least of mine,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, okay, I have to serve the least of his,
Mm,
the ones who get overlooked, the ones who
mm,
get discounted, like the
mm.
0.0 to the 1.9.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And one baby I had who was a fifth grader who read on the kindergarten level in fifth
Wow.
grade. And one semester, I moved him to second grade. One semester, his reading
Wow.
level. And the
Mm,
same thing. Even this school year, I teach high school seniors. When I started with them in September, August, I assessed them. They were at sixth grade writing level.
you
They
say seniors?
seniors, high school seniors,
High school seniors. They're at sixth
sixth
grade
grade.
writing level. Wow. Okay.
They passed an exam that qualified them for that measured them at a 10th grade.
Wow.
So from August
That's
to
beautiful. Oh,
January,
so wonderful. Mhm.
they moved. I said, y'all, how many grade levels is that?
Wow.
Sixth grade to 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, that's four. I said,
Mm-hmm.
uh-huh. I said, we
Mm-hmm.
did that in a semester in a week. Do
Mm-hmm.
you trust me? Yes. I said, well, I trust God.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
We
Man.
move. We move.
Yeah. Just moving,
We
moving.
move.
Wow. That's wonderful. And would you say it's these type of skills that you've honed and refined over the years, probably starting with your mom, and it was further refined in the education that you received all the way through your doctorate in educational leadership, that then is now helping the prep factory to be what it is.
Yes.
And that's one. Now, when did that start, the prep factory, by the way?
2014. I ran from it for 2 years.
Ah,
I moved to back to Texas in 2013, and the Holy Spirit told me what to do. And I was like, I'm good.
mm-hmm.
Let me just go get
Yeah.
somewhere and get a check. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I want you to help my children.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a job as an elementary ed teacher,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that was going to appease him.
And God be like,
Look, now,
okay,
ain't
oh,
nobody told you to go down there and do that. But okay, I'm going to give it to you. And I'm going to
okay.
bless you while you in it. But I
Mm-hmm.
still need you to do what I told you to do.
Like, you still gonna do that.
Because I know the plans
Mm-hmm.
I have for you.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
I know what you do. You don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm
I
doing.
love it.
I need you to line it up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother came in the house one Saturday in my mom's house and said, man, somebody got to help these kids go to college. I looked at him. Why you say that?
Uh-huh.
Man, he's talking about these kids don't know anything. They don't know this, the stuff that mom taught us. Woo, woo, woo. And I'm saying, and I said in my mind, okay, Lord, I submit.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
right there at the breakfast table, we came up with the name. It was June of 2014. The Prep Factory.
Wow.
We came up with a logo. My son is an
Wow.
artist. He sketched it out, and then we sent it on to a graphic designer who came up with
Mm-hmm.
this. I said it needs to have a cap and gown because people need to understand that it's with just by looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
it's academic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got,
Mm-hmm.
my mom was like, "It's called a mortarboard." I was like, "Oh, okay." So, so proper. I was like, "Well, a mortarboard, then." And and do you see the mortarboard?
There you go. That's
You
it.
see it? You see
Yep.
it?
Right there. Well, yeah, right there. I got it.
Right
That's
there.
it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And then the acronym, PREP is an acronym. Position, recruit, empower, produce.
Position,
Recruit,
recruit, empower,
empower, produce.
produce.
We position you academically for the institutional fit. We position you academically for college, recruit you to your institutional fit, empower you while you're on the campus, and produce you as a leader.
Wow. Man. And this happened at the dinner table.
Breakfast table.
At the breakfast table, June 2014. This was just wow.
We sitting there
Wow.
at picking teeth. We laying back. The bacon, we eating the residual bacon. The leftover bacon. Because somebody got to eat it when you clean it up. You just can't leave the bacon on the
There
table.
you go. Can't leave it. Oh my God.
We eating the residual bacon, and then the entire family is in it. And my
Mm-hmm.
very first client was my niece.
Okay.
Very first
Okay.
client. Very
Wow.
first. Because even though in 2014 I had
Mm-hmm.
it right, and I had enough wherewithal to go and reserve the name everywhere on
Mm-hmm.
social media,
Mm-hmm.
I still ran from it for another 2 years. So it didn't
Wow.
officially launch until 2016, which was her senior year. 2016,
Mm-hmm.
2017, and Thanksgiving 2016, she came here. She lives in Louisiana, or did. She came to visit us in Texas, and I was like, "So what's up with your college? What's going on? Have you applied to school?" Woo, woo, woo. What I want to do is, I was like, all I hear him saying is, "You haven't applied to school.
Right.
What's your GPA?" I'm a three. I got 3.5. You got 3.5. You ain't applied to school. I know so well.
Mm-hmm.
And we said,
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Come here, open up my laptop." And now, mind you, I'm deep in my doctoral program at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I got my bank card out, made her fill out the application, helped her walked her through the application. Got my bank card out, paid the $35 application fee.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Congratulations, you've applied to college." She is
Wow.
now a college graduate,
Oh,
and she has received 2 promotions since graduating.
wow. Look at
She
that.
people just need to know about you.
Uh,
I don't understand why you a secret. And in her first year, she's very transparent about her testimony too. She came back and was a speaker to
mm-hmm.
the next cohorts. And
Mm-hmm.
then after freshman year, she's very transparent about it. She almost flunked out of school. She had a 0.3 GPA.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you know, I already had experience
Mm-hmm.
turning things, got it already
Yes.
given to me that. And I
Mm-hmm.
told her, once she started, it's like everything came back into place. And she
Mm-hmm.
cried her little eyes out. I told her, "Go wash your face, drink you some water. Come back
Mm-hmm.
when you calm down so we can create a plan." I said,
Wow.
"And take a couple of days. Let me know if you want to keep going. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
quit, all right. But if you want to keep going, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But as
Mm-hmm.
long as you're crying, I know you can't make a decision.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
good.
let me know." So I said, "You have 2 days."
Mm-hmm.
She came back the next day.
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, Keisha, I want to keep going." "All right, then let's go."
Okay.
And we
And then like
created,
let's get in there.
got her,
Got that plan.
got her on
I
the
love it.
academic plan,
Mm-hmm.
contacted the university. Boom, boom, boom. 200 students failed out that semester, that year, on academic probation. Not even academic probation, suspension.
Mm-hmm.
And only 3 were chosen to move forward.
Man.
And I looked at her and I said, "Father, Son, and Holy Spirit."
Oh wow.
And she just
Mm-hmm.
started crying because she was one of the 3. I
Because
said,
she
"All
was
we
one
need
of the 3.
we just need a yes. But we
Wow.
do the work that faith requires."
Mm-hmm.
And I told her when she graduated, I'm screaming because her theme song was "It's Your Winning Season." Winning Season by,
Mm.
that was her theme song the rest of undergrad.
Wow. The
And I
rest
was
of
screaming.
undergrad.
And I told her, everything attached to me wins. I said, that's what the
Mm-hmm.
young lady says in the song.
Mm-hmm.
And at her
Wow.
graduation, when they call her name, I'm screaming. And I screamed out, it's your winning.
My
And she's
gosh.
like, oh my gosh. She's like, I said, everything attached.
Mm-hmm.
I said, the prep factory is God's business, literally. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to work.
Oh yeah.
It's going
And
to
it
work.
seems like you've been thriving since then, because I know we talked about it like a couple of years ago, and
Mhm.
you were already, because that was what, it was 2021, maybe that was probably 2021 at that point when we had talked about it before, and you had already got it started, you were flowing, you were moving, but before we started recording, you told me even in the last couple of years since we spoke before, it's been, I mean, talk about it being God's business, because it's been just continuously, it seems like with each year growing and thriving and impacting lives.
Yes, it has. But what's wild is that I lost the spark for it. And I
Mm.
begged God to let me quit. Clearly.
Yeah.
I
Like,
like, I know you go. I didn't want to know how bad it's gonna be. Because I know I'm gonna have to do something. How bad is it gonna be? Just let me know. Never answered.
uh-huh.
And then I remember talking to my pastor and his first and the first lady. And she said, and I think at the time my pastor was kind of going through the same thing. We're the same age. Matter of fact, we were high school classmates. He was in that juxtaposition, that space. And I was just like, this is hard work. I'm tired of struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, since God gave it to me, that it was gonna be like peaches and cream, bed of roses. I was like, it's a it's a nonstop battle to be
Mm-hmm.
to get don't to get funding, to get this, like ministry is expensive, and I was like, yo, I'm funding this out of my pocket. Like, this is for the birds.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go travel. I want to
Mm-hmm.
do things. I want to take my son places. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sick of this. And I just really want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I started pulling back and pulling back. And then and she's like, she gave me some encouraging words. And then she also prophesied.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, like last summer, there was like a renewal. But it was
Okay.
fleeting. It was fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working on the outline to a book. And I got to
Okay.
chapter 3, and of the book, the outline of chapter 3, all one chapters 1 through 3, and a huge jug of water wasted on my journal and smeared my pages. And I was like, I'm done. This for the birds. You kidding me?
You're right. Exactly. I'm just like, oh,
What is
breathing
happening?
for
I'm
you.
like this. What is happening?
Right.
And then like community partners fell off. And I'm like, okay, what am I putting something in atmosphere? And I'm questioning, okay, God, like, God, dog. And then I
Mm-hmm.
had to realize I had to grow. He was growing me
Mm-hmm.
through something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was very uncomfortable. And I was trying to run from the purpose.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
I was trying to run because he got so uncomfortable. And I tried to run from the purpose. And he's like, I ain't gonna let you do it. And then
Mm-hmm.
December 31st, 2022, I can't sleep. I'm up. I've washed all the clothes. I cleaned the kitchen from top to bottom. You know, I figured out what we gonna fix for dinner, all this stuff. And I get your laptop. Okay. Look at the pages. Well, darn, okay, I can read the pages now. For weeks, I couldn't even read the pages. This
Mm-hmm.
journal's been dry for 6 months now. I finally, the pages not stuck together anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I started typing the pages. And
Wow.
by the time I was done, 7 chapters outlined. And when I
Oh,
was
wow.
empty,
Mm-hmm.
he let me go to bed.
Wow. He said, you're going to get these chapters out. You're gonna
Because
get these chapters out. Wow.
people buy me books about college prep and all this other stuff. And I'm saying, I'm looking at these books and I'm like, but this isn't practical. It's
Mm-hmm.
good, but is a 19, 18-year-old going to read it?
Mm-hmm.
No. And an 18-year-old's parents aren't going to read it because they're too busy. It
Mm-hmm.
might be really useful information, but it's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Now, here, I'm going
So
to read
enter
it.
Dr. White.
But get this. He gave me the idea for the book in 2011 when I was at Philander advocating.
Oh.
And I didn't do anything with it. I was like, I talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay,
Okay.
let's go. I
Wow.
said, so that's where we
Wow.
are. I said, how do we increase the reach? Maybe I'm tired from doing it this way. And I heard a
Mm-hmm.
sermon about Dr. Darius Daniels that said, multiply. And I
Mm-hmm.
fasted over Christmas break,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard the Lord arise and go.
Mm-hmm.
Saul's journey to Damascus, his on that
Mm-hmm.
road, when his
Mm-hmm.
eyes covered with scales, arise and go. And then him
Mm-hmm.
telling the Holy Spirit, the Lord telling Ananias to arise and go.
Mm-hmm.
To go. And Ananias is like, Ananias, I sound like Ananias. I don't want to go. Hey,
Uh-huh.
you know what this dude is? This dude killing folks like me. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of doing this broke. I'm like, I have
Mm-hmm.
every reason why I shouldn't. And then January 1st sermon was leap.
Mm-hmm.
This is the leap year from Dr. Darius Daniels. How do you leap? It's got to be exponential. You got to multiply.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about making an impact. What is your impact?
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that followed up right after those 7 chapters that
Yes,
came out on the laptop, and then now leap. And now
literally, literally.
literally. Wow. Man, so tell us, because I want to be sure that we highlight a couple of things with the Prep Factory, and then also if you would like to share about the book. But if people want to connect with what you're doing with the Prep Factory, I know you said you're headquartered there in Texas. Is this just available to Texas students, or who is this available to, your services?
No, we have students all over the country. So last count, we have students in 11 states.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, our students, they because we encourage them, especially if they're Texas residents, to leave the state,
Okay.
explore. There's so much more than in the world to experience.
Mm-hmm.
We also make sure they participate in study abroad programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, we have students. So our headquarters, I pretty much when I initially wrote the Prep Factory, it was set up to be hybrid
Okay.
before pandemic. Because
Oh
it
wow.
started
Okay.
out as a ed tech class, education
Hmm.
technology class, where we had to write curriculum and all that stuff. Well, the Holy Spirit had me writing the Prep Factory up, and that really was the
Mm-hmm.
catalyst too. How do I, so I wrote it as a part, as virtual and in person, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. But it can really be 100% virtual.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
So
really
people
can.
can connect. Now, so how would they connect with you? If somebody is listening here and they say, my child needs this, or somebody watching, they say they feel they need it themselves. Do they have to be already a senior, 11th grade, or who do you work with?
We work with I used to work with 7th grade and up. Now I'm gonna stick with 9th grade and up. And then
Okay.
I've also had parents who have wanted to express a desire to finish their degrees or go back and earn an extra degree
Mm-hmm.
or to start college period.
Mm-hmm.
So I've helped parents of students,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the parents learn by just sitting in and understanding and then questions, that they
Mm-hmm.
may have. So it's really like, if you want to go, let's go.
Okay,
You know,
I see. If you want to go, let's go.
let's
I
go.
love it. I love it. So 9th grade and if you're ready to go, let's go. How do they reach out to you?
They can reach out to the Prep Factory. If you look for the lime green and black, I think it's about the storm is hitting. I'm gonna be quick. Lime
Okay.
green and black. There are 2 Prep Factories. You want the lime green and black one, right? The other one is Test Prep. That's not. We do Test Prep, but that's a totally separate organization. We are a
Okay.
nonprofit. So our
Mhm.
website www.theprepfactory.org. www.theprepfactory.org. We're also on social media as The Prep Factory, THE. Don't forget that article, The Prep
Mhm.
Factory. So
Mhm.
just you see lime green and black, it's us. Which
Okay,
is
I
also
love
the
it.
colors of
Lime
the
green and
undercover.
black.
Yeah, these are also the colors of the Undercover Genius Society. I didn't realize that till I looked back at some of the data, and I was like, oh my God, it's the same color scheme.
Wow, that same theme throughout. If there's anything else you want to say about the book, is that something that we can look forward to at some point? Or
Yes, yes, yes. So
okay.
typically I take the month of June off, and so that's the time that I hope that I'll be launching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm available for motivational speaking. I'm available
Wonderful.
for work. We're available for teaching workshops virtually. We'll have a
Good.
scholarship writing camp this summer, scholarship essay writing camp called The Right Place, where I'm working on that programming. I did a soft launch of that 2 years ago, got afraid of it because it was really popular. And I was like, fear is a thing, right? It's
It
really real.
is.
Um,
Mm.
so I'm just, so there's that, the scholarship camp. Then there's the AccuPlacer camp, which is a college placement test camp that we're going to help with. And if you want to sponsor a student or donate to the Prep Factory, we are 501c3. We'd love to give you a receipt and tell you thank you. So just
Mm-hmm.
look for us, 817-677-8286.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Keisha White. We appreciate you talking to us about the Prep Factory and really your journey. You have shared a lot of nuggets. Hopefully, people were able to catch those. So, if you got to go back and rewind a little bit, catch all of those nuggets. Thank you so much for sharing your process with us. And people, look out for everything that's happening with the Prep Factory. Look her up, call her, email, get in touch with her, because clearly God is working through her to make some things happen for these students out there. So, thank you for all you do. It's been another edition of Birthing the Gifts. It's a process conversation series. Thank you again, Dr. White. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you.